neighborhood. Won't you be my? Won't you be my? Won't you be my neighbor? Yeah, man. Top of the afternoon to everybody. Hopefully, your day is going good. If not, hopefully before the day is over, that'll change for you. I got a couple of things that I want to discuss today. Um, we're gonna be talking about that movie Straw with Taraji P. Henson. Listen, gotta give you a round of applause. You did your thing. Tyler Perry, one of his best movies ever. Number one on Netflix. You gotta love it. It was good in terms of entertainment, but then it also touched on like a lot of real sensitive issues. Um, Shout out to all the single mothers out there, that's trying to do the best that they can, even when the weight of the world is on your shoulders. Now, we're not going to talk about, why the man is not in the life, but we're not going to talk about why the father is not, in the children's life, or, why y'all not together. That's a story for a different conversation, but I'm going to touch on that as well, because I had a situation today myself. But yeah, so getting back to the movie, right? Um, so it was one part in the movie that it kind of threw me for a loop. Like Tyler Perry, he threw it for a loop. It was a good loop that he threw. When she was in the bank and she was saying, "Listen, I just need my check. I need to get this $40 to my daughter, so she could eat, so forth and so on." And they showed earlier in the movie where she took her daughter to school, but when she was dropping her daughter off to school, the lady that was standing in front of the school was looking at her like kind of strange and kind of crazy. And I didn't know at the time why that stood out to me. But, at the end of the day, it stood out to me in my mind. So now when you fast forward and you go deeper into the movie, where she kept saying she want to give her daughter the $40, and then they did like a flashback kind of thing where it was showing her pulling up to the school, opening the door. Nobody was getting out the door. And then she was waving, like her daughter was going to school. And, it was nobody there. So that's why the lady was looking at her. But, a little towards the end of the movie, that's when they say like her daughter had died the day before. And so her daughter died the day before, and that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was like she lost it, mentally gone, head gone. And I was like, wow, this is, mental health month. And the fact that that movie came out of mental health month, that was kind of epic. But it's like people really be losing their mind like that in real time. And you don't really know what's going on with people, She had a lot of pressure on her. Like she got kicked out, she lost her job, and she caught a homicide all in the same day. It's like, yo, how crazy is that? And Tyler Perry, his pen game is crazy to be able to, put that kind of movie together. But, I want to get some of y'all thoughts and opinions on that movie if you watched the movie. If you didn't watch the movie yet, it's on Netflix. Definitely tune in. The name of the movie is called Straw with Taraji P. Henson. Written and produced by Tyler Perry. Classic banger. And then when you see the circumstances that she was, that she was living under, didn't have no heat, like food and clothes all over the place. It was like, man, that was sad. It kind of pulled at the heartstrings, but that's the reality, right? A lot of people are going through those same circumstances every single day, and nobody know. Because of social media, people, post pictures or put up videos, and they show you the part of life that they want you to see. But that's why I really like that movie, because it was a real depiction of what really goes on in a lot of households every single day. And then her daughter had a medical condition, so her daughter had fell when she was in the tub. And then of course when she took her to the hospital, them folk like, man, listen, we got to take your kid because they thinking it's abuse. Did anybody ever go through a situation like that where it's like your child was injured or failed, for whatever reason, and then them folk was called, and now they trying to take your child because, of this injury? Anybody, I want to know if anybody had those circumstances before. But, keeping it going, personal story, right? So today, my daughter, she's graduating from 5th grade. She's going to 6th grade, very proud of her. And she had a party boat ride. This is like they ended the school event. And so, I showed up, and all of her friends, they know me from seeing me at, different events and everything. So they came, they was coming and, saying hello and, giving me high five and stuff like that. And it's a couple of kids that some of the events that I go to, they parents don't come. So, I cheer them on, I support them, I'm saying? I dap them up, just to kind of make them feel good. So the reason why I'm going into that, right, is because during the time that I was there, my daughter, she had called me. So her and her friends were sitting at the table, and I came and sat at the table with them. And, the young ladies, they were just saying, man, you such a cool dad. You kind of let her do her thing. And, every time you come around, you make us laugh, you make us joke and stuff like that. And one of the girls said, I wish I had a father like you. And I just kind of looked at her, And then another one of the children, mind you, these are all 10 and 11 years old, 9, 10, and 11 years old. And another one of her friends was like, can you be my father? And I was like, wow. Then another young lady said, your daughter said you get her almost anything that she wants. Is that true? And I'm like, yeah. I said, now, if she's misbehaving, that's the time where she won't get, kind of everything that she want. And she was like, well, my daddy, he only give me $100 sometimes. I barely see him. And it kind of hit me in the heart, right? And it put me in a predicament right there at that particular time where it's like, okay, so what I can do is I could try to make myself look good by saying that, they fathers is no good, and they fathers is nobody, and how they should be in their children's lives. But then another part of me said, like, let me use this opportunity for a teachable moment, right? Because I don't know the circumstances of those gentlemen. I don't know why they not in their children's lives. That's not my business. But at the end of the day, it's like I was given a voice at that point in time, and I could say something. So what I said to the young ladies, I said, whether your father's in your life, whether you have the best of circumstances or not, one thing that your parents did give you is your parents gave you life. And in giving you life, you could strive to become the best possible person that you want to be. Utilize your circumstances for fuel. Utilize your circumstances if you don't like them. Utilize your circumstances to get your education, so that you could possibly become something in life. I say your fathers, some fathers have jobs, where they can't take off of work and, show up to events like I can. I said, sometimes your parents, the sacrifices that they make and that y'all don't see is going to work so that they could provide, a roof over your head, so they could put food on the table, so they could put clothes on your back. I said, so if they're not fortunate enough, or if they're not in a position to be able to do more, try not to come down hard on your parents, And one of the girls was just looking at me, and she was like, yeah, but, my daddy is never around. And I said, okay, I understand that, I said, but what if your father wants to be there? What if your father wants to do more, but he's just not in a position to do so? How would you feel about it then? And she was like, I would feel bad, that I feel this way about him and he's really not in a position to do it. I said, exactly. So when you're faced with a negative situation, or, you faced with negative thoughts, I said, always try to look and always try to find the positive in it. And like these young ladies were just sitting at the table, like just looking at me because they didn't expect that to come from me. But I'm sharing this with y'all because a lot of times when, especially if you're a male or you're a female and you're doing a little bit better in life than some people, you try to take that as an opportunity to throw jabs at people that's less fortunate, or people that can't do the things that you do, forgetting that where there's an up, there's a down. You could be doing good today and you could be doing bad tomorrow. And when it comes to kids, we have to realize that they're very impressionable, right? What impressionable mean is like they soak up information like a sponge. And you got to be careful what you say to them, because what if I said to those kids, well, your fathers ain't nothing, they ain't doing what I'm doing, they ain't show up, and they don't want to be there. These kids could have carried that with them for the rest of their life, but based on the conversation that I had with them, they had a more positive, experience. And it may not mean a lot to a lot of people, but it means something to me, because I was there showing up for my daughter, and I also showed up for other people's kids as well. And that's what being, grown, and that's what being an adult is about. And that's why the movie, Straw, it goes hand in hand with this conversation. Everybody out there have their own set of circumstances. Some people are really, really struggling out there. Some people are having it hard, just making it through the day. And because of the pressure and because of the stress and because of, these various issues that they going through, a lot of them break, a lot of them crack, a lot of them, they resort, to drug use, and they resort to drug abuse. Some of them, they abuse their kids. Some of them abuse people that they're in relationships with. Some of them abuse friendships that they have, just mad and angry at the world and just going at everybody just because of what it is that they're going through, So just try to be mindful of the fact that when you have an opportunity, to share a good and a positive message, like do that, because you don't know, whose day is gonna affect. And there was one particular kid that said, his parents don't really show up to the events, and I always cheer him on, and I always, make him aware that, I'm there, and then I'm rooting for him, and then I'm cheering for him. So when he see me, he always got a smile on his face. Again, this may not mean nothing to a lot of people. And this is more centered towards, the women, that some of y'all, maybe trying to create issues so that the man is not going to be in the life of the child, or, for those individuals that don't want to be in their children's life for whatever reason. You feel like you got, other things important to do. Look, when you sit down and have kids, if you decide to have kids with a female that y'all beefing and y'all going through drama or what have you, look, that's on you, because you're the one that chose that person to have a child with. So you can't blame her, and you can't exit the child's life or not be in the child's life feeling like it's too much and it's too much drama because of the person that you just decided to have a child with. Because it's like, what do that child got to do with anything? Why should that child suffer from the actions of their mother, or why should that child suffer for the actions of you? Because you don't want to be responsible in handling your business. You was handling the business in the bedroom, you got her pregnant, and now you don't want everything that go with it. Listen to this. When you have a child with somebody, you hope and you pray that it'll be a good, decent, and functioning relationship. In the event that it don't be, you still have a duty and an obligation to your child. Whatever it is that you have to go through, whatever it is that you have to deal with, whatever drama, whatever headache, whatever issues, don't let that stop you from being in that child's life, because you don't know what your child is going through in school. You don't know how your child is feeling when they going through events, and it's Father's Day functions, it's school day functions, and all of these other kids have their fathers, and your child is the one that don't have a father. No child deserves that under no circumstances. And this is what a lot of children are experiencing, as they're growing up. And then you wonder why they 12, 13 years old, they want to go to a gang, they want to join the gang, they want to start smoking weed, they want to start hanging out with their friends, they want to start getting in all kind of trouble, they want to start going to youth homes and youth facilities. They're not listening to you. Now you want to punish them, or you want them out of your house because they're not listening to you. But you're not realizing the circumstances that you're creating for that child that makes them feel the way that they feel, or making them act the way that they act. Like, we're adults. We can understand things on an adult level. Kids process things on a totally different level than we do. And unfortunately, a lot of parents don't want to listen to their kids. Unfortunately, a lot of parents feel